If we look at the growth, evolution and development of administrative law, we can broadly divide it into three phases: police states, democratic states and social welfare states. Initially, many countries across the world were police states. They were autocratic or monarchies or kingdoms where the king and his officials were the law unto themselves. The focus of the state was on acting as the police, that is, maintaining law and order and delivering justice, and of course, maintaining their authority. The state did not generally intervene in the day-to-day business of the common public. There was no separation of powers because the ruler decided what was the law and applied it as well. The ruler was the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary as well. But the rulers and the state themselves were above the law. That is, the king and his designates could not be punished or held accountable for anything that they did. So, during the time of the police states, administrative law as such was not required. Next, during the late 18th and the early 19th centuries, there was a development of the democratic states, where the public directly or indirectly chose their government. This was the time of the French Revolution and the American Revolution. During these times, even if the king or the queen were the head of the states, their power was greatly diminished or reduced. The concept of rule of law became stronger, which said that the government must operate within the law and the laws should apply equally to everyone, including the rulers, which meant that nobody was above the law. Countries started to have constitutions which formalized the limits of government's powers. This was the time when the development of administrative law really started, to ensure that there are some controls over the government's powers. After the Second World War, there was economic crisis in many countries, and the government started to play a larger role in the day-to-day lives of the citizens. This was the time when more and more countries became welfare states to various extents. Many countries, especially in Europe, started the implementation of social security, free healthcare, free education and unemployment benefits. There was also an increased emphasis on equal opportunity for everyone and equitable distribution of wealth. So, this was the time when administrative law developed into an important area of law. In the police states, there was no separation of powers. The ruler decided the law and applied it as well. The state could exercise its powers arbitrarily without any oversight. So, during this time, administrative law as such was almost non-existent. At the time of the evolution of the democratic states, the concept of rule of law was established. To prevent the abuse of power by the state, the need for a system of checks and balances on the powers of the state was accepted. We can say that this was when the development of administrative law really started. At the same time, the theory of laissez-faire, which was developed in France, was adopted by other European countries as well. This theory or philosophy held that the government should allow free market capitalism to work in its own ways, and the state should not intervene too much in the economic affairs or the businesses of the people. So, while administrative law was developing, it was applied only in a few areas. So, it had limited need and limited scope. With the evolution of the social welfare states, where the state started to play a much larger role in the economy and the daily lives of the citizens, there was an increased need for administrative laws. This was to ensure fair administration of the welfare benefits and services being provided by the government, to ensure that these benefits and services were actually reaching all the citizens. There was also an increased emphasis on protecting the rights of the individuals who were interacting with the administrative agencies or the state. So, administrative laws were enacted or evolved to govern the expanding roles of the administrative agencies or the expanding role of the state. To summarize, with the shift from police states to social welfare states, there was a shift from the state exercising arbitrary power to the state also being subject to the rule of law, from minimal governance to welfare governance, and from relying primarily on coercion to adopting a service-oriented approach. These shifts or changes were accompanied by the growth and development of administrative law.